Hello, 408 people, it's me. I'm here again to talk about some poems and such, and we'll write a couple of poems or write one poem. Today we're going to talk about Danielle's poems that she wanted to present to the class. We'll do that, do her exercise, and that's the drill. Hope everybody's doing okay. We're getting by around here. It's a little crazy. Stella's upstairs baking something. Max is. I made him. He's cleaning out his closet. I said, "You go clean your closet." And the first thing he said was, "Why?" And I don't really have a great answer for that. But at any rate, he's cleaning the closet, so that's terrific. Hope everyone's well. The first poem that we're going to look at today, grab your books. The first poem we're going to look at is on page 238 by Amy Lowell. Um, this is a short little poem on the bottom of 238 called A Decade. And so I'll read that and then we'll hear what Danielle has to say about it. A decade. When you came, you were like red wine and honey, and the taste of you burnt my mouth with its sweetness. Now you are like morning bread, smooth and pleasant. I hardly taste you at all, for I know your savor, but I am completely nourished. Okay, so that's all right, huh? Let's see what Danielle has to say about that. She really enjoyed the poem because of the optimistic tone. The food imagery is nice. Felt like she was able to make a connection with the person. I felt like I was able to grasp her connection to the person she's writing to. I especially liked her part about morning bread. As we all know, bread isn't the most tasteful food, but satisfies our hunger. She writes, taste you all, for I know your. I hardly taste you at all, for I know your savor, which to me sounds like a love she's had for a while. The relationship sounds trustworthy through these lines. I also love the verb choice of burnt, which I'm with you on. That's excellent. She writes, when you came, the taste of you burnt my mouth with its sweetness. Provides clear insight into the relationship, insight in regard to the start of the relationship. Burnt was also a really captivating way to describe too much in this sense. So overall, the poem seems well thought out and depicts the speaker's feelings in just a few simple words. Okay, great, Danielle. I'm with you on that. Short poem. It's got some great little stuff in it. You point out the verb burnt, which I think is terrific, as you said. And the taste of you burnt my mouth with its sweetness. To be burned by taste, and then for that taste to actually be sweet that burns you. That's an interesting way of saying it, and not something I would have said. Um, One of the things here that I think is interesting is how Danielle has read this poem as her talking to a lover, which I think is absolutely one way to read this. When you came, you were like red wine and honey, which sounds right. These are like, you know, 5,000 years ago, people would have appreciated red wine and honey, right? Like these are natural, beautiful things. And the taste of you burnt my mouth, though. And so maybe that relationship was intense in some way, in a way that burns, right? Which is what I suppose happens with love. Now you are like morning bread, smooth and pleasant. So things have changed over time. It was like red wine and honey, and you burnt my mouth. Now it's like morning bread, smooth and pleasant. I hardly taste you, so you're not burning my mouth anymore, for I know your savor. Because I already know what you taste like. It's like maybe I hardly taste you at all, for I know your savor. Maybe like, we don't taste air because we're always breathing it in. For I know your savor, but I am completely nourished. So at any rate, I think that works great to read that as a poem directed toward a lover. I also think, though, because of the title, A Decade, I guess we could think about this perhaps of the lovers being together for a decade and maybe the way that love changes over time. Also, too, I think about a decade as like maybe she is writing to a decade. Like, say, maybe she's writing to Well, she's in 1919. Maybe she's writing in the 19 teens, that decade. And maybe she's saying, when you came, decade, you sounded so great, red wine and honey. And it was so exciting and it was sweet. But now I've gotten used to you. You're smooth and pleasant. I hardly taste you. I know what you're about, and I am completely nourished. So maybe it's both directed at a person or potentially directed at time as well. I don't know. Interesting poem. Thank you very much for that. And Danielle, the next poem that we're going to look at is on page 799. This is a poem by W.D. Snodgrass, who has a terrific name, called Mementos. And we'll read this and see what you think. Mementos 1. Sorting out letters and piles of my old canceled checks, old clippings, and yellow note cards that meant something once, I happened to find your picture, that picture. I stopped there cold, like a man raking piles of dead leaves in his yard who turned up a severed hand. Still, the first second I was glad. You stand just as you stood, shy, delicate, slender, in that long gown of green lace netting and daisies that you wore to our first dance. The sight of you stunned us all. Well, our needs are different. Then, oh, I'm sorry. Well, our needs were different then, and our ideals came easy. Then, through the war and those 2 long years overseas, the Japanese dead in their shacks among dishes and dolls and lost shoes, I carried this glimpse of you there to choke down my fear, proved it had been that it might come back. That was before we got married, before we drained out one another's force with lies, self denial, unspoken regret, and the sick eyes that blame, before the divorce and the treachery. Say it, before we met. Still, I put back your picture. Someday, in due course, I will find that it's still there. Okay, right. This is a really powerful poem. Let's see, Danielle. This poem is very thoughtful. It provides great imagery throughout the entire poem, spiked with emotion. I was also extreme. It was also relatable. The speaker is telling a story of being unable to throw out a photo of his ex-wife. Through his writing, you can tell that there are possible feelings still there, or that he at least misses her. He speaks positively of her. I believe this is what made the ending so powerful when he writes, I put back your picture. Someday in due course, I will find it still there. The ending was definitely my favorite part. Just like Amy Lowell's poem, this piece does an emotional job at detailing the type of relationship the speaker has with the person they're writing about. The Snodgrass version leaves a trace of disappointment. That, however, doesn't take away from the strength of the words in this poem. Yeah, so beautiful. A few things I want to point out about this poems, about this poems, about this poem. One is the format of it, which obviously has a rhyme scheme. But I just want to point out that as we're reading this, we practically don't hear the rhyme scheme at all. Because practically none of the lines end with a comma or a period, so you read on, and thus the rhymes are de-emphasized the entire poem. This is beautiful to me. If you're gonna rhyme, make it subtle. Make it as subtle as you can, and this is subtle and beautiful. What a poem here about finding a picture, that picture. Stopped cold. Okay, everyone, I'm back. We were talking about Mementos by Snodgrass. Sorry about that. Let's see. We were talking about. I was going to say he was looking at the photo and he finds the photo, and when he finds it, he says, it's like what? So you say, somebody says to you, I just found your photo. What was that like? And they say, well, that was like a man raking leaves and finding a severed hand in the dried leaves. So imagine that surprise. An awful, my God, a shocking surprise. Something that is not cool at all. What a great simile. What a beautiful simile. I stopped cold, like a man raking piles of dead leaves in his yard who has turned up a severed hand. Um, so that's beautiful, right? And then, of course, he talks about how beautiful the picture was and how he carried it with him all through the war. Um, and then, of course, that last stanza turns everything upside down. Before we drained one another's force with lies, before we did all this bad stuff to each other, and as he says, say it, before we met, still I put back your picture. Someday in the due course, I will find that it's still there. Um, right. I'm sorry here. It seems like the poem just takes a real turn at the end, and becomes quite sad. And then the fact that he can't get rid of the picture is something to say too, which is to say maybe some of the sad stuff in our life, that not only does it stick with us, but we keep it with us. We don't throw it away. We keep some of that sadness. And why do we keep that sadness? I don't know, right? But I know I have some old pictures of girlfriends, particularly one girlfriend, right, who I spent a lot of time with. And I know that those photos are super powerful. And photos of my wife, from when we were dating, and those photos are sort of burned into my head in a beautiful way. Could never get rid of them, I suppose, even if we wanted to. At any rate. So let's see here what writing exercise Danielle has for us. She has write a poem. Excuse me. Write a poem about something you struggle to let go of. Something you struggle to let go of. My God, that can be so many things. That could be a picture, that could be a feeling, right? That could be so many things. So, write a poem about something you struggle to let go of. On your mark, get set, let's go. Okay, everyone. So I'll read you what I wrote here, and then hopefully in your comment boxes you can either share comments about the poems or the poems that you have written. So here's what I wrote: How to say it's okay and goodbye when it's not okay and there is no goodbye. How to say love when love is sleeping under a bridge. How to say respect when it is passed out in an alley. To me, you were like a smell that clings. And I want to say goodbye, but the whole world is saying hello, hello, hello. Yay, people, it's a poem. Writing poems is a piece of cake. Um, hey, thank you, Danielle, for these poems. I hope everyone has a great day. Mm, be safe. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.